Law enforcement can't do it on their own. The community has to get involved because there's so many variables that are causing this issue.
I wanted to find a way to contribute and see if there's anything I could do as a business owner and a resident.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of City Law, City Justice. I'm Officer Dave Northway of the Tallahassee Police Department, and I'm your host for today's show. Today, we're doing something a little different on City Law, City Justice. We are not bringing you any police officers. We're bringing in some community members. There are two of them. Their names are Miss Gloria Pugh and Mr. Tom Drzapolski. Thank you both for being here today. I know you both are business owners in our community, and let's start with that. What do you do for our community before we even get into why you're here?
I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Amwet Moving, Warehousing, and Storage.
Okay, and Tom?
I'm the president at Bow Stern Marketing Communications.
Okay, excellent. And so we're here today, though, not to talk about what you do at your business, because obviously, as business owners, you're contributing to the community in a great way. But we're here to talk about gun violence committee that was established. Ms. Pugh, can you kind of explain that to our viewers, because they probably have no idea what we're talking about?
Well, the council was created by Chief DeLeo, and it was in response to the increased number of shootings we were having in our community. I met Chief DeLeo at a forum at the Tabernacle Church, and I related to what was happening because I had an employee who was murdered, and so I had that connection, and so I wanted to get involved because I did notice that we had an increased amount of shootings in the community. So I was asked to serve on the council, and then when we created the committees for the council, I was chairing the communications committee. So I am not an expert in communications, but I know people who are.
Right.
So therefore, that's why we have Tom.
That's how we bring Tom in. And Tom, if you can explain a little bit about what you do for a living, because that obviously will tie into what we're talking about, and then what you do for us on the committee. Sure.
So Bow Stern's an integrated marketing firm, and we develop strategic marketing campaigns for clients all over the country and in Europe. And so through our company, we've got web development, graphic design, all these great, powerful communication tools. And Gloria's familiar with our work, and when she called and told me what she was getting involved with, I wanted to be involved right away. And if you know Gloria, you don't say no when she asks you for things. So I knew that rule first. But I was also aware of the situation in Tallahassee, the headlines strolling through social media and the Democrat regularly, all the news outlets. And I wanted to find a way to contribute and see if there's anything I could do as a business owner and a resident of Tallahassee to help. And so I was thrilled that she called.
Vested in the community. It sounds like both of you are truly entrenched in it, and two of the people who are trying to help us out. So let's start from the beginning, Ms. Pugh. We form a gun violence council, or a committee if you want to say. What happens? We go to the first meeting. There's a bunch of people there sitting around a table, and what are we doing?
Well, first we broke out into different committees, and so one of the most important committees that I've been working with is the analysis committee, and that committee is Chief DeLeo, I was Reggie Boudier, and Edward Clark, and so what their job was to bring back statistics to the council so that we knew exactly what we were dealing with. And through their efforts, we established that there are 9 areas in Tallahassee, very isolated areas and small areas that we call hotspots, or areas where they're having high incidence of gun violence. The 2 areas that are impacted the most is South City and Greater Frenchtown, which includes Griffin Heights. And they're actually kind of very isolated areas, very contained areas of just shootings. It's almost kind of like when you look at a contagion map and you see the little dots of contagions of where diseases are located, it's similar to that. And you see these areas where the violence is just very isolated to certain areas. So once we identified the 9 hotspot areas, then we started drilling down as to how many shootings, when are they occurring, who is being shot at and who is the shooter. And so the analysis showed that it was 18-year-old to 29-year-old African American males are the individuals who are most impacted by the gun violence.
And one of the things that we've talked about, I also help out with the communications committee here and there, and one of the things that we've talked about in our meetings is that it's not just the people who are doing the shooting that it affects. I think that's one of the big things that we miss as a community, is that it affects the family and the friends. And Thomas, maybe you could talk about that a little bit. It is a widespread effect on us as a community.
Yeah, no, the ripple effect of one incident impacts both families in multiple neighborhoods, employers, and community leaders every single time it happens. So while we have these isolated hotspots that you can identify on a map, if you picture these concentric rings rippling out, those hit you like a wave. And whether you're a religious leader, an employer, you're going to at some point encounter these negative impacts. And in my role, one of the things I was most interested in examining was when we look at the community and the individuals that are involved with this, I'm interested in the cycle of their life and how we can develop communication strategies to touch them at different points. So if you look right now today in Tallahassee at young men, say between 16 and 20 years old, we want to develop a message and a campaign and methods to reach them and move their minds and hearts to making better decisions. And that's important work. But there's another generation of young men behind them and another behind that. So we're looking at a comprehensive communication approach to say, how do we mentor and speak to young children, 6, 7, 8 years old, 9, 10, 11 years old, approaching those critical, teenage years where there's going to be an opportunity to them to encounter some difficult decisions, and we want them to make the right choice. So from a communications perspective, we are developing messaging and campaigns that hopefully are going to touch the different parts of the community, not just address it when it's hot. So that's exciting.
And that's exactly where we need to be going. I mean, you have to have a starting point. The first initial meeting kind of gave us that starting point. We got the analysis, the communications plan, and we're moving forward. But again, those all have to be developed and they have to be approved through the council, and everybody's on board. Let's talk about that a little bit. So let's say that the communications committee says this is what we propose. What is the next step then?
Well, obviously, when we develop a marketing plan, a communications plan, and we present it to the council, I mean, we're working right now on the brand because we felt, the communications team felt that the Community Leadership Council on Gun Violence, it's a mouthful and it's very difficult for people to just remember that. So we wanted something that people would remember and that it would somehow or another hit home with them, give them a kind of an impression of what we're trying to do. So the communications team, as you're aware, and we vetted several names, and we came up with the Human Campaign, which we presented to the council, and the council absolutely loved it. Obviously, we had another campaign that we presented, and they had asked us to go back and do a little bit more work. And we felt that the Human Campaign was a good brand because what's happening is happening to humans, and it's impacting, like Tom said, it's impacting just because it's a victim and a perpetrator. It's not just those two individuals. It's impacting all the humans that are related to these two individuals, and not just them, but the community at large. So we are working right now on working on the logo and the messaging campaign, and once we get that package together, we will present it to the council, and then in unison with the strategy that we have identified is to have both launch about the same time.
Outstanding, outstanding. Well, that brings us to the end of our segment. I know it goes fast, but I do have to take to a commercial break. Tom, we're going to say goodbye to you. Gloria, you'll stay with us for the next segment?
Yes, sir.
All right. We're going to continue on with this great topic. We'll see you right back here on City Law, City Justice.
Until all our daughters are safe. Until all our children have families. until all our families have homes, until all our parents are cared for. We'll be here.
Every week we return all our cans and bottles. Yeah, we help to reduce the world's waste.
But aluminum? It's like gold. Oh, yeah.
Environmental defense. Get green. For more environmentally friendly tips, go to getgreen.com.
Oh, there's a bottle.
Where?
Right over there. To your left. To your left. There you go. You got it.
Welcome back to City Law, City Justice. I'm your host, Dave Northway. Today we're talking about Gun Violence Commission and the council that's connected to that. We still have some non-police officers joining us on the stage. Ms. Pugh is still here with us. Thanks for staying.
Thank you.
And now we have a new guest, and that is Mr. Vincent Hunt, or Vince as you go by. Vince, can you tell us what you do in the community and how you're connected to this whole thing and why it's important?
Yeah, I'm a local business owner. I own a corporation, massive corporation. We're an ideation and design consultant group. And so what we do is help companies ideate their ideas and bring those ideas to the marketplace, whether it be new products, new services, and brands. Right now we're working on a huge project called Creators Camp that I'm deeply passionate about. And it's for kids K through 12, and it helps them explore creativity and really harness their creativity and build the confidence for that. Connected to the program here through Gloria. Again, I'm another one of those people that she came to and said, we're about to get busy in the community and tackle violence, and you can't say no to Gloria. So I will attest to that as well. And
That's 2 votes.
That's 2. And you're going to hear that probably from many people because she's just that passionate about the work. And that's what really connected me to it. And when I started to hear about what she was trying to do, I just had to, get involved with it and see where I could actually contribute.
Outstanding. And you live in the community?
Absolutely,
You're one
in
of our community
Tallahassee.
members?
Absolutely.
So you're
yeah.
part of the solution then, as
Yeah.
we're asking our community members to help out with. And I think that's something that we should probably expand on a little bit. You get the questions as police officers, what are you going to do about this as a department? But the answer is not so simple. It's we've spoken about this at numerous community meetings. We're not able to arrest our way out of this problem. We've been arresting people in this community for a long time, and it's not solving the problem. And so we've branched out and said this is something that the community needs to buy into and to accept and take under their wings and try to solve those problems. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. You're correct. We cannot arrest our way out of this issue, this very significant challenge that our community is facing. And law enforcement can't do it on their own. The community has to get involved because there's so many variables that are causing this issue, this gun violence issue, from poverty to education to hunger to just not having the appropriate mentoring or example. You've got kids raising kids, kids that are running the streets and without supervision and without mentoring and without a, somebody to say, hey, you know what, we need to give you a better example. We need to make sure that you're getting education. We need to make sure that you're living a healthy lifestyle. So there is so many different variables that need to be addressed, and law enforcement cannot do it all. By the time you guys get there, it's because something bad has happened. And so we're trying to change it so that we are not reactionary, that we're not being reactive, but we're being proactive. And so we wanted to learn from the community members who are residing in the hotspot areas what their challenges are. And this is one of the reasons that I asked Vince to join us, because Vince is such a great facilitator. So I'd really like for Vince to tell us his experience with the forums that you facilitated and the information that you learned.
Yeah, we've had several forums now, and Vince has been one of our moderators. And can you kind of explain what that means, a moderator? I'm not sure people understand what that means.
Well, to be a moderator at an event like that is to kind of like guide the conversation, making sure that we're staying on topic, that we're pulling out all the meat and the potatoes, if you call it that, of the conversation, and making sure that everybody's staying honest and true to what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And at the exact same time, giving people that space that they need, make them feel comfortable with being honest with themselves and being honest with the conversation at hand. So that's what the moderator does. And
Instead of letting it turn into be a you're doing something
Yeah.
wrong, an honest, open conversation. That's a special talent to be able to do that. You can't just stand up there and do that without some talent. I think you got it going on.
I think it just takes a level of conviction, right? And I think when we very first had the very first meeting that I was involved with as it pertains to this matter, I realized quickly, that it is a community situation where we have to really take ownership of what's going on ourselves in our own homes. Let's start there, and then let's go ahead and expand that out to the communities that we serve and that we're part of. No matter what part of the city you live in, it's really everybody's responsibility. So having that sense of conviction made it a little bit easier to moderate a room where you're going to have varying ideas and opinions about the tragedies that are going on in the city. So being able to have that level of conviction, I think, is really, really important part of the narrative to really keep people honest about their role in solving the problem.
And I was at a couple of those forums, and it was truly amazing to watch you work, if you will, watch the master at his job. We did get some people who believed they were going to, a community member was just going to show up and yell and say, this is what I think's happened, and you were able to actually funnel their energy so that they were being honest with themselves, being honest with the other people in the group, and everybody had an open conversation, which is what we need. We're not going to be able to arrest our way out of it. We're not going to be able to solve it as the gun violence committee by ourselves. We need everybody in this community to step forward and help us out. We all live here. We all do our business here. We all take our kids to school here. We're all members of this community, and we all need to be involved with it, not just one or two entities. It has to be everybody for this to work. So I think that where we're going is in the right direction, obviously.
I agree.
But I think we still got a long way to go.
We have quite a journey ahead of us. We really do. Our biggest challenge was acknowledgement, the community acknowledging that we had an issue. And that was quite the challenge because nobody wanted to admit that we had an issue with violent crimes in our community. Everybody's like, no, that you're kidding. And the reality is that we do. And I believe that the forums and the conversations that were had was significant because we weren't telling people what we were going to do for them. We were basically asking them, what is your experience in your neighborhood? What are your challenges and what are your solutions? And we were talking to the people who were mostly impacted by the gun violence. Right. And it was incredible what the kids were telling you.
Yeah, the kids, there are certain things that you can plan for and there are certain things that you can kind of structure and shape. But then there's magic that happens, right? So when you have community leaders or people within that community who had been, victims of crimes themselves or who had actually been perpetuators of crimes themselves actually, coming to the forefront, I think that was pretty awesome to get that kind of feedback.
Absolutely. It sounds like we are moving in the right direction, but we still have a couple of steps to take before we get to where we want to be, and what we need is more people like you guys. I truly am humbled by what you have done for us, especially on a volunteer basis, and I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate what you do on a daily basis.
Well, thank you so much. All right, we're running out of time. We've got to go to break real quick. We'll see you right back here with one final guest that is not a police officer. See you right back here.
That's been just 10 seconds. If you commit a crime and pull a gun, this will be your home for 10 years. Fire the gun, 20 years. Shoot someone, 25 years to life. 10-20 life is the law. Get the picture?
It's a career of courage.
It's a career of strength.
It's a career of honor.
It's a career of integrity.
career of pride.
It's a career of commitment.
Character.
Honor.
Courage.
The Florida Department of Corrections. It's a career of courage.
Hi, and welcome back to City Law, City Justice. As I promised, we have no police officers on the stage besides me. We do have a new guest, Mr. Dale Brill. He's welcome to the stage. And if you would tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll move right into our road trip that we were on.
Sure, Dave. I'm a local business owner. I'm a consultant that works in public policy development and economic analysis. So all the stuff that everybody tried to avoid when they were in school, I get to do that for a living.
and a secret is you used to be a broadcast journalism student. So
back in the old days, before things were digital, it's the Victrolas and things like that. I was working in broadcast. So.
Very good. Well, thank you for taking time out of your day to come in and talk with us. Let's talk about the road trip.
Well, we identified a strategy. The council identified a strategy. Chief DeLeo, when our first meeting, he handed us these big white notebooks, and in the big white notebooks were various strategies. And so the council selected the Cure Violence strategy that is in Chicago. And I know I hear a lot, oh, well, Chicago is the murder capital of the world. Well, the murder capital of the world is not such an accurate statement because the violence has somewhat decreased in Chicago, but a lot of the criticism that we get is that, well, there's still shootings. What they have to understand is that the Cure Violence strategy is very focused via neighborhoods. So you have a Cure Violence strategy within a 2 square mile radius, and the communities or the neighborhoods that have the Cure Violence strategy in place in Chicago are experiencing either no shootings or very limited shootings. Over the July 4th weekend, when they had that huge increase of shootings, the areas that had the Cure Violence strategy did not experience the shootings. They were actually living in peace.
And Mr. Brill, you went up to get a taste of this Cure Violence program. Can you give us your experiences?
Sure. Well, the city had funded an expedition or a group to go up to Chicago. I asked Gloria if I might attend, and I just kind of volunteered. I tagged along as a civilian to see what was going on, and also I'm a member of the communications committee, so I thought it would help. But and I'm from the Chicago area, so it was an excuse to get up there and see the hometown. Absolutely. Yep. But
did you see the Cubs?
No, they were out of town. Well, actually, I stayed an extra day, and yes, I'll admit I caught the Cubs in Wrigley Field, so I got to see.
Oh, so you did get to see the Cubs.
I did get to see.
That's the important.
Did get to see them, but we also saw some amazing things that were going on in the neighborhoods, and as Gloria mentioned, we were in the thick of things. I mean, these are neighborhoods that. You don't wander around and unescorted. In fact, we walked them unescorted. At least we weren't with police. I mean, Chief DeLeo was with us, but we weren't with Chicago police. We weren't armed escorts.
He was not in uniform, I'm guessing.
No, we were there with the Cure Violence folks that are known as interrupters, and it was just amazing to see the high regard, the trust, the admiration that the kids have for these stalwart heroes of their community that are putting it all on the line day in and day out to cure violence.
And so an interrupter, so that our viewers know what that is, can one of you explain that to me?
Sure, I'll take a stab, Gloria. The interrupter is a term that comes off of behavioral science. So they're not just making this up as they go along. This is based on decades of behavioral research that indicates that 2 steps really, to oversimplify it. One is that we have to de-emotionalize the situation. We have to pull emotion out of what is obviously a very heated incident that leads to violence. And what you're doing is you're buying time. And then once the person calms down, then you can engage their brain and say, do you really want to commit this, whatever the type of crime or violent act would be? Because here's what you're going to lose. But until you pull emotion out of it, you can't rationalize with somebody that's in a heated state. So that's what an interrupter does. They live in the neighborhoods. They are part of that neighborhood. They are from that neighborhood. They have street cred. They're not from the outside. It's the neighborhood healing itself.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Outstanding. And how many interrupters would be in a a neighborhood, some of our Tallahassee neighborhoods? How many are we talking about? We're talking about 5, we're talking about 20, we're talking about 2.
So for a 2 square mile radius, you would have anywhere 4 to 6. And you don't want to do anything bigger because then that would dilute the job of the interrupters. What they basically do is they're street mentors. They basically walk the streets, walk the neighborhood. They get to know all of the, well, they already know much of the community.
They grew up there probably.
Exactly, they grew up there, they know everyone, and they just basically keep an eye out. They're like guardians, you know, and if they see a situation, you know, they go and they kind of mediate the situation. And the facility that we visited, their name is Ceasefire, and that Ceasefire office filled so many voids for the community. It wasn't just about interrupting violence, but it was also the role model effect. I mean, when we asked kids, Dale and I walked together, and we asked kids, you know, what do you guys want to be when you grow up? And they all in unison, interrupters, because this is their role model. This is what they look up to. So we were just so impressed with it. And not only that, but they also, I mean, they were feeding the hungry. I mean, people would come to them, people who are desperate, people who are in need, people who are just looking for someone to say, it's okay, we can help you, we can give you this resource. They're not the solve all solutions, but they're very in touch with what the resources are that are available, and they direct them to those resources. And not only do they direct them to the resources, but they also check up and say, hey, did you go and visit that person that I told you about that job, or about your health, or about your kid, or what have you. So we were so impressed.
It's amazing, and it's not cheap. But the community has made an investment in the Cure Violence Project, and when you look at the cost of implementation versus the cost of lost lives and hospitalizations, whether that's just an emergency department treatment and release, or whether that's somebody that has to be admitted, we've got some preliminary data that we'll be sharing that indicates that we're looking at north of close to $70 million for 2014 gun-related assault, violent crimes cost this community over extended upwards of almost $70 million. And really, the murder is the big one, right? I mean, we lose a life, and it seems so crass to talk about a life in economic terms, but I'm approaching this from a very research-driven perspective. Right. But you know, when you look at a lost life, that is the economic benefit to the community, to their families, et cetera, is lost. That can range from anywhere from $5 to $7 million per life. We had 9 murders in 2014. Do the math. That's almost $60 million alone.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
And one of the benefits of the strategy is that we are employing individuals, so we are actually stimulating that very local economy, because the individuals that we employ are the individuals who have had issues with the law, who were incarcerated, but they have rehabilitated themselves. And a lot of these guys, through my experience in this last year working on the Gun Violence Council, is a lot of these individuals who come back to their communities, many of them want to make a difference. They want to make sure that the kids in their neighborhood don't walk the same path and end up being incarcerated. Right. So these guys are given jobs, and that's their job, to be an interrupter. And then you have the project manager, and you have the caseworkers. So you're giving jobs. The majority of the money that is required to implement this stays in the community. So it's not like we're sending it away. We're not sending it away. It actually stays in the community. So it stimulates that neighborhood's economy, because you have people who did not have jobs now working.
So to wrap up for our viewers very quickly, because we're coming to the end, we need to make an investment into our community.
Absolutely.
It is going to be there's going to be a cost associated with it, but I don't think you can put a cost on human life, is what we're all talking about. This is a terrible tragedy that affects us all as a group, and we need to take care of it.
Sure, and the community healing itself.
Absolutely. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to come in and spend some time with us today. That brings us to the end of our show. We'll see you next time on City Law, City Justice.